Welcome to Making It Simple. Great to be with you as always. Hope you're doing great on this beautiful Tuesday, and the week is moving right along. I want to jump back into our lesson we started yesterday, talking about purpose. I think this is important because so many struggle with the idea that I have no reason, I have no purpose. But as we talked about yesterday, that word means aim or intent. So to say I have no aim, I have no intent in life, that's a really, really bad place to be, friends. And what we find is through the teachings of Christ, that's not true. It all goes back to relationship. I talk about this extensively, and I would even go a little further and say exclusively in my ministry, because until we understand that, friends, none of the rest of it makes sense. It really doesn't. And even then, I think the deeper that we get into our relationship with Christ and understanding the intent of what all that means, we begin to really, really distance ourselves from the religious aspect of this, because they don't have anything to do with each other. And I say that with great sincerity, because there are far too many that are ingrained in that side rather than the relational side. See, many only see Jesus from what they've been told rather than what they know. And that's two very, very different things. So as always, I like to begin as we talked about the scripture yesterday and when Jesus was beginning this conversation. So I always love to begin with the first word. I think that's important because it sets the tone for a conversation. Just like when we're talking to each other. When I try to welcome everybody, hey, everybody, great. That's sincere. That's not just to grab attention, but I mean that. I enjoy doing what we do. But it's just like in a personal conversation. The first words and the tone of those words that either grab your attention or they turn you away. Just that simple. I see a variation, and I don't want to use my platform or our time together, because I do consider that important to talk about anybody else or to use illustrations. But I keep seeing this barrage of videos and clips and whatever from other pastors. And the way they talk to their people, I wouldn't sit there 30 seconds. I'd walk out the door. Because there's nothing Christ-like in their tone. There's nothing Christ-like in their message. See, our job is to lift up each other. And I'm going to prove that to you as we look through this passage. Jesus said, you. That's the first word of this conversation. You. Why does that matter? Well, because that is direct. This is personal. It is meant to be heard in that way. It is meant to be understood. This is something special that I am speaking directly to you. See, this direct approach, what it does, friends, is it removes doubt. See, if we enter a room and are we wanting to have a conversation with a specific individual, we don't just start talking in general. We talk to that person, or we call them by name if necessary. Here, what we find is when Jesus says, you are the light of the world. What he's saying here is it removes the question as to whether we have a purpose or not, because he's directly speaking to the heart of the one that is listening. He's speaking to the heart of the one that is following, the one that is interested, the one that desires an answer. It removes the doubt. It removes the question, because now I am speaking to you. That's the intent of this message. I am speaking to you. You are my audience. And so when he says you, we can pause right there for a minute and say, wait a minute, that's me. I should listen, because someone is speaking to me. Now, the intent of that conversation, the tone of that conversation, the content of that conversation will either continue to hold my attention or I turn it off. But when I know that you're talking to me rather than in generalization, the likelihood that I'm going to pay more attention is stronger. And that's exactly the tone of this particular wording that we get from Jesus. He said, you are. Well, Pastor, we're going to go through every word? Yes, because there's a reason in those first few words, you are the light of the world, that there is such a strong message as it pertains to our purpose and the existence of or not. Because for one to tell themselves, one to convince themselves, I have no purpose, I have no aim, I have no intent, I have no reason, well, that's not true. And we see that through the words of Christ. He said, hey, you are. So the word are there it alleviates the maybe. There is no maybe. Are is an affirmative. Are is not if you think. Are is not anything. Are is saying this is the, not a, not an, the answer. This is your identity. This is your assignment, your direction. You are. We could apply that in so many different ways. You are whatever your name is. You are how many ever inches tall. You are how many ever pounds heavy. You are, Jesus is giving a direct characterization and a direct assignment. You are the light of the world. Wait a minute. That sounds important. Well, that's because it is. Okay, think about it. Imagine this. All right, I'm going to give you just a little illustration as we kind of wrap up our time together today. Imagine, if you will, just pause for a moment. Think of this illustration in your mind, or close your eyes, or however you want to do this. Everything that you see is dark. Just picture that, okay? Everything is utterly dark. Well, that sounds kind of awful, right? Hopeless, helpless, sad, scary. And we could probably come up with 100 other words to describe the fact that everywhere I looked, there was nothing but darkness. Many see the world that way today because of the just seemingly hopeless and aimless and just disastrous nature of everything. Okay, whether it is politics, which is horrifying, whether it's religion, which is even more horrifying, all these different things that divide people, we quickly can see how everyone could see things through that lens of darkness. However, picture what Jesus is saying. You are the light of the world. So imagine as you witness and perceive this darkness, and everywhere around you, everywhere you look, right, left, and front, back, everywhere is dark. But picture, if you will, that darkness changes when you walk in the room. Wait a minute. Is that a little prideful? No. Here's what he's saying. You are the light of the world. In other words, you are a reflection of me. That's my assignment. That's what God says I am. Yes. Look at what it says. You are the light of the world. He's saying through you, the reflection of him through you has the ability to change things. In other words, yes, not only do we have a purpose, but our purpose is most important. But here's the question. Do you let that light shine through you? You see, friends, and I say that from walking in our faith. I say that from a believer's perspective, from just a positive person's perspective, certainly speaking to those that have the position to share this, whether from a pulpit or wherever. Are you a reflection of Christ? Because you know what that requires? That you know who he is, not just what you were told. So the screamers, the ranters, the railers, all the different ones that are just jumping up and down and making a whole lot of noise, you are not shining the light of Christ. When we begin to understand, when darkness changes, when your presence walks in the room, it's not about you. It's about him through you. It's your kindness. It's your empathy. It's your compassion. It's your understanding. It's your willingness to listen. It's your willingness to meet people where they are rather than try to beat them to death with the Bible when you have no idea what it says. Purpose. Do I have one? Absolutely. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow when we get back together for another episode of Making It Simple. God bless you, friends. Have a good day.